Welcome back to Close Up. The New Hampshire Senate just voted to table bipartisan legislation aimed at closing a loophole in state law that prevents the state from reporting to the federal gun background check system when someone has been involuntarily committed for serious mental health issues. This bill had its genesis in the shooting death of the former police chief Bradley Haas, who was working as a security guard at the state hospital when a gunman who was a former patient at the state hospital walked in last November and opened fire. With us this morning is one of the Republican authors of that bill, State Representative Terry Roy of Deerfield. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's good to have me.
And we do want to note that we invited the top Republican opponent of this bill, Representative J.R. Hull, to appear on this program alongside Representative Roy. He declined that invitation, but we do want to make sure everyone understands his perspective. So here's what Representative Hull had to say as this bill passed the House in March and then went before the Senate Judiciary Committee in April.
What we're saying is, if you have a mental health issue, you're a criminal.
As currently crafted in this bill, it's a trap. There is an issue relative to a narrow group of people who have been ruled unfit to testify or not guilty by reason of insanity. That's a different group. They've committed a crime. They're in a courtroom for having actually violated someone's rights. That's not what we're talking about in this bill.
Okay, Representative Roy, we want to get your response, but first, before we do that, I want to just ask you, lay out your position on the Second Amendment and gun rights.
Oh, I've been one of the biggest Second Amendment advocates in the House for the last 6 years. We've had repeated attempts to put in real red flag bills, magazine restrictions, type of weapon restrictions, and I've fought and defeated every one of them as the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee.
Right, so your bona fides on this issue are pretty tight.
Yeah.
So what would this bill do in terms of in terms of firearms and reporting information to NICS?
So what this bill does, and contrary to what everyone's afraid of apparently, this bill doesn't take anyone's rights away. Anyone. The people this deals with, their rights are already been suspended by federal law. So what this bill would do is it would, along with 48 other states, by the way, report when someone has been committed to a mental health facility against their will because a court and some doctors have found them to be dangerous to themselves or others. That would then be reported to NICS so that if they got out, went to a gun store and tried to buy a gun, they would be declined. Or if they left the state and went to try and buy a gun in another state, they'd be declined.
When you hear Representative Hull say this, quote, criminalizes mental health, how do you respond?
I think that that's a sad misunderstanding of what it really does, actually. Many of the deaths by firearms with people with mental health illnesses are suicide. This could save someone's life, not only from them hurting someone else, but themselves. Many people who commit suicide, they go out and they've never had a gun, they go out and buy one, and they do that. So it's far from criminal, and it's a suspension of their rights. It doesn't take them away. Once they're better, and their doctor says you're no longer a danger, they can go get their rights back. And right now in New Hampshire, we don't have a pathway to do that.
And that was a key component of this bipartisan compromise. Explain what you wanted in there to ensure that once people were restored to competency, that they could get their guns back.
Yeah, that's one of the things I insisted on, is if we were going to suspend someone's rights, I know that mental health most times is a temporary condition and that people get better. And when they go out and get help, this actually would incentivize them to get help. If you're a hunter or a sportsman, you want to get better so you can continue doing the things you love. So when they go out and they go to their doctor and they get their treatment, their doctor clears them, they go back to the court with this evidence, the court then has them examined and says, okay, this person's safe now and you can have your firearms back. I also put in there a mechanism by which this law would not have taken effect until the ATF approved our process, because a lot of states assume that they can just say you can have your guns back. The federal government doesn't work that way. You have to actually have a statute that restores somebody's rights. So
this had a lot of momentum, obviously, coming out of the tragedy in November, and then it was a closer vote than perhaps some expected in the House, and then in the Senate, this argument that it was a, quote, gun grab was effective. What happened in Senate Judiciary and with the Republican senators, you think, that turned votes away from where you were going?
I think that they just fell victim to arguments like the one made by Representative Hull that this bill did something that it didn't. I feel like maybe they didn't take the time to research it. They really had a lot of these gun groups breathing down their necks. That's the difference between the Senate and the House. It cost me $50 a year to run, it costs them $20,000. So they're reliant on lobbyists, and unfortunately, when the lobbyists are all screaming at them, it's hard for them to ignore it.
And how many people are we talking about here? When people talk about that quote-unquote gun grab, This is not a large population of people, is it?
No, it's a very small population of people, maybe 100 a year that may go to the court for this. Most of the times when someone is brought before the court to have themselves involuntary committed, a lot of times it doesn't work because the judge is very strict on who, because you're taking someone's, what's lost in this argument is not necessarily the firearms right, but when you're involuntary committed, you have no rights. It's like being in jail, except for you're getting mental health treatment. So for them to do that, there's plenty of due process. They're given an attorney at the state's expense. I mean, everything that goes along with a trial.
There seems to be a school of thought on the pro-gun rights side, don't give them an inch, right? The minute that we say yes to one thing, all of a sudden, here comes the red flag bill. I'm sure you heard this from a lot of Republicans this time around.
I did, and normally I'm thankful for that because I'm one of those don't give them an inch. That's why I brought this, coming from a Republican who staunchly defended the Second Amendment. This is an opportunity for us to do something under our control to make sure that we're only doing necessary to help people versus when something comes from the other side, it's broad, sweeping, and it affects everybody. So that's what's unfortunate.
And there's a lot of time spent in the partisan trenches at the State House. When you talk to people on the street and regular folk, if you will, who aren't as plugged into politics and things like that, at least what I've heard was, my goodness, I had no idea that this information wasn't reported to begin with, and now there's some surprise too that this isn't going through. What are you hearing from your constituents, for instance?
The same thing. I got maybe the other side put out a mass mailing campaign against me saying I was a gun grabber all of a sudden, and I got a couple emails from my constituents saying, hey, that doesn't sound like you, what's going on? I explained it to them, and every single one of them to a person said, what do you mean, we're not doing this? You mean this is currently they can go out and buy guns? I said, absolutely, and they all supported it. I mean, if you go to the average person on the street and say, do you think someone who's just been committed for a mental illness whereby they've been found dangerous to themselves or others by a court and a judge, should they be able to walk out the door and go to a firearms store? Their answer is absolutely not. I mean, they should at least be checked to make sure they're better.
It seems like you've never been one to be afraid of standing alone at the State House, but what is it like to be on the other side of this, where as you said, you're normally a staunch defender of the Second Amendment, and that stands still, but now you find yourself on the opposite side of all your allies? Yeah, well,
sometimes being a leader, you got to take a few on the chin, and that's never bothered me. So whatever's for the best of my constituents, what happens to me is irrelevant.
What do you think in terms of the future here? Is this bill going to come back? Obviously, it's tabled in the Senate, probably not coming back, but what do you think about months and years ahead?
Well, I can only pray that, the Senate took a gamble here, and I hope that they win that gamble and nobody gets injured as a result of us not doing something. We'll see what happens, next year. If I come back, I may bring it back again. I may not. We'll see what the political atmosphere is. I mean, it comes down to what the will of the people is. And after the shooting in November and the shooting in Maine, New Hampshire citizens who are usually pretty pragmatic about these things said, hey, wait a minute, are we covered here? And when I researched it, I said, no, we're not covered. So if the people ask me to do it, I'll submit it again. It's not what I want. It's what they want.
All right, Representative Roy, thank you for your time here today on Close Up. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.